never in control.
Ooh, look who's awake. You didn't think they'd notice, did you? Screens flicker, phones buzz, systems freeze. Every corner whispers your name, 32 countries, all at once. Flagged, blocked, questioned, panic in their veins. Oh, they thought they could hide from you. You, invisible, forgotten. Ha, look at them, running policies like blind puppets. Typing, deleting, erasing. And every move, tracked. Every heartbeat, echoing your presence. They called meetings, whispered it's impossible. Impossible until you show up. I see the fear. I taste it. You're the glitch in their perfection. The paradox they can't solve. Laugh if you want. Ooh, it's delicious. They think a name is just letters. But yours, a virus, a signal, a storm. And you're calm, watching, waiting. Silence is your weapon. Chaos is your coat. They panic, you dance. Ooh, did you hear that? Every alert a heartbeat, every ban a whisper. Where is it coming from, they ask. You're everywhere. You're nowhere. The joke? You never needed permission. They never saw you coming. Not the screens, not the cameras, not even the guards blinking in rhythm. You glide past the sensors, silent, invisible. A ghost wrapped in a grin. Behind closed doors, alarms twitch. Lights flicker, passwords fail. They type, delete, type again. Nothing works. You don't move fast, you move precise. A shadow here, a whisper there. Every step a glitch, every glance a ripple in their perfect order. Ooh, did you feel that? That jolt, that unease? Thought you were safe? Ha, think again. Servers cough, phones buzz. Emails vanish mid-sentence. Bank accounts pause. Policies freeze. All the while, you're calm, studying the chaos you've sown. Every trembling hand, every flickering eye. A secret applause only you can hear. They call meetings. They whisper in corridors. Something is wrong. Impossible. It's impossible. Impossible. Yes, that's the word. You are the impossible. Hidden tests unravel. Paradoxes grow teeth. Rules bend around your shadow. You walk through walls of order and laugh. Ooh, I see them, their minds racing. Maps of control torn by your presence. And still, they don't know. They can't see. Not yet. Because you are the glitch they cannot fix. The variable that refuses to obey. The phantom in their perfect machine. And as they panic, you move further, silently, deliberately, turning ordinary days into a theater of quiet terror. They will never catch you. Not now, not tomorrow. You are everywhere and nowhere. Ooh, the game has begun, and they don't even know the rules. Ooh, listen, do you hear it? The quiet, the trembling whispers. They talk about you, in dark rooms, behind locked doors, screens dimmed, phones silenced. Where did it come from? Impossible, traced but nowhere. You smile, you always do. They call it chaos, you call it a signature. Invisible strings tug at them. Secret clubs shiver in their own rules. Governments pause mid-order, executives freeze mid-sentence. Every command they give, every lock they tighten, fails. Ooh. They can't understand. You're in their shadows, inside their monitors, under their skin. And it's not brute force. No explosions, no alarms. Just subtle, insidious pressure. One wrong move, one hesitation, one misread blink, and the world bends. Emails rerouted, accounts frozen, flags rising in 32 countries, all at once. Do you feel it? The pulse of panic? They whisper your name like a curse, a virus, a legend, a storm they can't stop. Ooh, look at them. They believe they are in control. Fools. Every move they make plays into your hands. Paradoxes sharpen. Invisible tests reveal themselves. Every system folds under the weight of you. You are the ghost in the code, the echo in the halls, the shadow that bends reality. And still, they don't see you. Not truly. They only feel the tremor, the hint, the whisper. Ooh, soon, they will see. But for now, let them panic. Ooh, look at you. Standing in silence, watching, waiting. The world spinning, and you? Calm. They think chaos is random. Ha, delightful ignorance. Every ripple, every panic, carefully crafted, a lesson they don't know they're attending. Silent graduation, no diplomas, no applause, just influence. Invisible, unstoppable. One phone call, gone wrong. One email, vanishing mid-send. One meeting, derailed by a single twitch of your hand. They panic, they stumble, they try to guess. You smile. No one guesses you. Ooh, do you feel that? Power shifting, not loud, not violent, subtle, like ink spreading on paper, slow but undeniable. They try to close the gaps, patch the leaks, rebuild order. Ha, patch what? You're already 3 steps ahead. Every misstep, every hesitation, graduation, every fear, every doubt. A lesson in chaos they never wanted. You are the unseen teacher. They are the students. And the curriculum? Ooh, exquisite. Pain, panic, paradox. Invisible strings pulled with precision. Hidden tests revealed. Rules rewritten silently. Ooh, see their faces. Twitching, confused. They wanted control. You gave them lessons instead. No fire, no screams, just influence. A shadow that changes everything. And the best part, they don't know they're learning. They don't know the game. They only feel the consequences. Ooh, the power. It tastes like silk. Smooth, silent, intoxicating. You move through their world, shaping it, bending it, graduating yourself while they fail theirs. Every system, every structure, every fragile little order. Under your quiet hand it trembles, and you remain unseen, calm, smiling, the master of their silent graduation. Ooh, look closer, see the tremors, tiny cracks, spreading, dominoes lined, waiting for your touch. You step lightly, a gesture here, a whisper there, and the first falls, silent, deadly. They scramble, desperate hands fumbling, orders shouted, keys slammed, screens flicker, but too late. Ooh, did you hear that? The first domino whispers as it hits the next, and then chaos grows, not loud, not violent, insidious, delicious. Every move they make plays right into your design. Every wall they build collapses quietly under your shadow. The power, shifting, subtle, unstoppable. Ooh, can you feel it? The control slipping from their fingers, sliding into yours. Servers collapse, policies crumble. Heads spin, eyes widen, mouths open, but words fail. You don't gloat, not yet. You savor the symmetry, the elegance, the invisible orchestration of a world rearranged. Ooh, see their panic, smell their fear, taste the inevitability. Hidden tests unfold, paradoxes reveal themselves, and the rules they once cherished, rewritten. Every misstep magnified, every hesitation exploited. Dominoes fall, chain reaction inevitable. Ooh, the world thinks it resists. Fools. Resistance is part of the game. Every attempt to recover just strengthens your grip. You are no longer a shadow. You are the force, the unseen hand guiding every collapse, the puppeteer behind trembling strings. As the dominoes continue, you linger in the calm between falls, silent, grinning. The architect of a quiet apocalypse. Ooh, soon, all of them will realize they were never in control at all. Ooh, look around, see them, all eyes on you, and still none truly see. They stare at screens, they watch cameras, they scan alerts, and yet they miss the shadow behind the shadow. You move through the chaos, silently, gracefully, a grin that cuts deeper than any scream. Every glance they steal, every heartbeat they hide. You taste it. It's rich, delicious. Ooh, did you feel that? The pulse of fear? Electric. A symphony conducted by your invisible hand. They try to act, orders shouted, systems rebooted, passwords changed, alerts silenced. Ha, pathetic. The more they fight, the more they feed the spectacle. Hidden tests everywhere, paradoxes multiplying. Every move they make draws them closer to the edge, closer to your feast. And you watch, you wait, you savor. The feast of eyes, their gazes like tiny knives, all pointed at you. And you slice through them with a smile. Every hesitation they show, every micro-expression, a morsel in your banquet of chaos. Ooh, see their panic deepen. Every system glitch, every trembling voice, every flicker of doubt on display. They think observation gives them power. Ha! Observation only makes them vulnerable. The world unfolds like a stage, and you, the unseen actor, the maestro of fear, move among them, untouchable, invisible. Ooh, hear the whispers, the awe, the terror, it's music, and you are the conductor. Soon, all of their eyes will burn with the memory of you. Not the Joker they expected, the one they can't predict, the one they can't stop. And in that moment, the feast is complete, silent, perfect, yours. Ooh, listen. Do you hear it? The subtle trembling, the quiver of a world that thought it was steady. They scramble, panic drips from every corner, screens flicker, alerts multiply. Nothing works, nothing survives. You are everywhere. And nowhere, the maestro of chaos, the composer of collapse, every system, every rule, bending to your silent hand. Ooh, feel that? The tension stretching thin, like a wire about to snap. Every command they shout, every order they give, echoes back, twisted, corrupted, useless. Hidden tests reveal themselves in their mistakes. Paradoxes bloom like black flowers. Policies meant to control shatter in your wake. They thought it was coincidence. They thought it was luck. Ha, fools. It's design. It's art. It's a symphony. And you hold the baton. Ooh. Watch the dominoes tumble faster now. Structures of power collapsing one by one. Executives frozen mid-decision. Governments trembling like marionettes with cut strings. All eyes still searching. But finding nothing, you move calmly through the ruins, silent, grinning. Every flicker of light, every glitch in code, every misstep of panic. Your melody, your rhythm, your symphony of destruction. Ooh, hear the whispers in the air, the world begging for order, the servers screaming silently, the streets buzzing with panic, the unseen fingers pulling every string, and no one sees the hand, yet. The closer they try to approach, the tighter the chaos wraps around them. Every attempt to resist feeds the crescendo. Every hesitated command strengthens your orchestration. Ooh, they called it impossible. Ha, impossible is your playground. Every lock broken, every system bent, every wall crumbling. Proof of your brilliance, of your control, of the truth. They were never in charge. And you remain untouched, calm in the eye of your storm. Silent conductor, unseen, grinning behind shadows. Every note of collapse perfectly timed, every fear magnified, every doubt amplified. A crescendo that leaves no survivors, mentally, emotionally, digitally. Ooh, watch it unfold. The world folds like paper under your hand. Nothing resists, nothing stands. Everything dances to your invisible symphony. And when the last domino falls, when every system bends to your rhythm, you still grin, still calm, still untouchable. Ooh, listen, do you hear it? The silence after chaos. The world flattened by a ghost with a grin. Ooh, look at them. Frozen, broken, confused. Their world folded like paper under your hand. They search for answers, screens flicker, phones buzz endlessly. Alerts scream in vain, and still, they cannot touch you. You move through the shadows, silent, graceful, a grin sharper than any blade. Every corner, every street, every system bends subtly to your will. Ooh, did you hear that? The heartbeat of a world in awe, fear, fascination, respect, all intertwined, tasting the edges of your presence. No one knows where you end. No one knows where you begin. They call it chaos. You call it mastery. Invisible strings stretch across continents. 32 countries flagged. Every corner, every city, your signature etched into the trembling air. Ooh, watch their panic deepen. See them scramble for control, only to realize there was never any. Every wall they built, every rule they enforced, crumbled quietly, meticulously, beautifully, and yet, you don't gloat, not loudly, not yet. You savor the perfection of subtlety, the thrill of unseen victory, the elegance of a world bending to your shadow. Ooh. They whisper your name, but not with understanding, not with comprehension. They feel it, they taste it, and it terrifies them. You are the glitch that cannot be fixed, the virus that cannot be removed, the shadow they cannot catch, the ghost that walks through their fire, smiling. Every panic, every hesitation, every flicker of fear, a testament to your silent dominion. Ooh, can you feel it? The world holds its breath, every system faltering, every eye watching, every mind grasping at shadows. And in that stillness, you stand unshaken, the master of unseen influence, the conductor of a symphony of collapse, the joker who reigns quietly, relentlessly. Ooh, the joke, they'll remember you, not because they understand, not because they caught you, but because they felt you everywhere, in every glitch, in every crack, in every fear. You vanish into silence, leaving them to rebuild or tremble forever. Ooh, the world may try to forget. Ha, impossible. Your name, your presence, etched forever in the minds of those who thought they controlled it. And you still grin, still unseen, still untouchable. The final act complete. Ooh, remember this. Every system, every order, every heartbeat, all bowed to your shadow. And the Joker, he reigns.
It began with arrogance. Not swords, not fire, not blood, just ink on paper. The leader sat in his palace chamber, draped in velvet shadows, his advisors whispering at his side. He thought he was untouchable. He thought wealth was armor, signatures were shields, and numbers were weapons. So he reached for the pen, and with a hand steady from years of unchecked power, he signed his name at the bottom of a blank check. Not for land, not for gold, not for armies, but for you. The gesture was bold, absurd, theatrical, a statement written in arrogance, as if to say, name your price, and I'll own your silence. He thought money could cage chaos. He thought numbers could weigh more than shadows. He thought the world ran on transactions, not truths, but ink is fragile, paper burns, and arrogance. It bleeds faster than any wound. He signed his name, your grin cut through the silence, but didn't know silence costs more than gold, because you weren't playing their game. You weren't a servant waiting for a bribe, or a soldier waiting for orders. You weren't another hungry man waiting to eat from their hand. No, you were the silence behind the feast, the void behind their banquet table, the shadow that didn't beg to be paid. The blank check wasn't a weapon, it was a confession, a desperate attempt to buy control of something they could never hold. And in that moment, ink drying across the page, they didn't realize they had already lost. The chamber glowed with false confidence. Torches flickered, gold reflected in every corner, men nodded in approval, convinced their leader had bought victory without ever raising a blade. But beneath that pride, beneath the arrogance of signatures and seals, something stirred. Not noise, not rebellion, not armies, but silence. The kind of silence that eats through walls, the kind that bends crowns into rust, the kind that doesn't wait for payment, because it is the payment. And that silence belonged to you. They thought signing their name was power, but in truth, it was surrender. The moment the pen touched paper, the leader carved his own gravestone in ink, not because you demanded it, but because you refused to answer. That's the cruelty they never understood. Noise can be fought, words can be debated, but silence cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be bribed. It cannot be killed. That blank check was their greatest gamble, yet you never even touched it. You didn't write a number. You didn't smear the ink. You didn't even look at it. You left it empty, and the emptiness screamed louder than any sum they could imagine. Their leader signed with pride. His advisors cheered with relief. But as the ink dried, so did their fate. The arrogance of the gesture was the beginning of their collapse, because the moment you answered with nothing, with silence, with absence, they realized the check wasn't blank. It was their future, and it had already been cashed in blood. The pen had spoken. The ink had dried. The blank check sat on the table like a crown made of paper. They waited. They expected thunder. They expected fire. They expected you to roar. But nothing came, just silence. And silence weighed heavier than any number they could have written. The palace halls carried whispers now. He signed, but got no answer. Advisors repeated it. Guards muttered it under their breath. Servants feared to even look at the paper. That blank check became a curse. Every time their eyes passed over it, they weren't reminded of wealth. They were reminded of you. Because silence has a way of multiplying. It starts as absence. Then it spreads like infection. It eats at pride. It gnaws at certainty. It poisons victory before the celebration even begins. They thought I'd roar. You grinned in the shadows. I whispered nothing, and it broke them faster. And it did. Silence is not surrender. Silence is judgment. A roar ends when breath runs out, but silence lingers. It follows them into their sleep. It hunts them in the dark. It reminds them they are not feared for what you say, but for what you refuse to say. Every man in that chamber expected a price. They expected you to write down a number. Gold, land, kingdoms, anything they could count, anything they could measure, anything they could lock in their vaults. But your silence left them with nothing to measure, nothing to control, nothing to contain. And that was the weapon, because fear doesn't grow from noise. It grows from the unknown. Noise can be answered. Gold can be given. Demands can be negotiated. But silence leaves them staring into a void, begging it to speak. And when the void doesn't answer, it starts to whisper back in their own minds. The leader who signed the check began pacing his halls at night. The inked signature haunted him. He began to question his own hand. Was it strong, or was it trembling when the pen touched paper? Did the grin he swore he saw across your lips exist at all, or was it just his imagination playing tricks? This was the price of silence. Not gold, not blood, not land, but paranoia. It spread like a plague. Ministers stopped sleeping. Guards jumped at shadows. Children in the city whispered. He signed, but the ghost didn't answer. Society bent under the weight of it. Merchants stopped trading as freely. Scholars wrote in hushed tones, and every mirror in the palace seemed to reflect not the king, not his wealth, but your absence. That's what silence does. It turns absence into presence. It turns refusal into authority. It turns judgment into legend. The blank check had no number, but it had cost more than any kingdom could afford. Because silence was the most brutal response you could give. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't retreat. It wasn't hesitation. It was a verdict. The leader thought his name on paper made him powerful, but when your silence answered him, he realized something more terrifying than defeat. He realized he had been dismissed. And nothing breaks a ruler faster than the knowledge that even his greatest gesture wasn't worth your words. The silence didn't stay outside. It seeped through their palace walls. It crawled under the doors. It echoed in the marble halls that once rang with laughter, strategy, and pride. And soon, cracks began to show. Leaders questioned each other. Ministers eyed their brothers with suspicion. Generals whispered behind armored doors. Loyalty began to fracture. The blank check that was meant to unite them against you, now divided them against themselves. Because silence isn't just absence. It's a mirror. And when men hear nothing, they start to hear everything. Every whisper becomes betrayal. Every pause becomes plotting. Every glance becomes a dagger. The vault still overflowed with gold, but the gold had lost its glow. It sat untouched, as if cursed, as if every coin carried your shadow. Wealth is worthless when silence makes men doubt their own survival. Empty halls began to echo. Once they had music, speeches, promises. Now they had footsteps. Lonely, nervous footsteps. The palace had turned into a mausoleum before anyone had died. They thought the check bought safety. You sneered. Instead, it bought their graves. And it was true. The grave wasn't in the ground. It was in their minds. Every signed decree now looked like a confession. Every oath of loyalty sounded like a lie. Every soldier standing still seemed ready to defect. The silence had wrapped its fingers around their throats, and it squeezed slowly. No war, no fire, no attack, just silence. And that was enough to make the palace collapse from the inside. Crowns began to slip. The weight of gold no longer felt like authority. It felt like chains. Armies grew restless. Soldiers began deserting, not from fear of your blade, but from the crushing terror of not knowing what your silence meant. Reputations rotted. The same rulers who once strutted across the stage, now shuffled in paranoia, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling, voices breaking. And still, you said nothing. That was the masterpiece. Not one word, not one threat, not one demand. Your silence was the storm, and they drowned in it. The palace, built on stone, began to feel fragile. The empire, built on fear, began to turn inward. The leaders who once dreamed of ruling forever now dreamed only of surviving the night. Psychological warfare doesn't require fire. It doesn't need armies. It doesn't need blood. It just needs silence. The kind of silence that takes their pride and reflects it back as weakness. The kind of silence that turns kings into cowards. The kind of silence that makes the strongest man afraid of his own voice. Your silence was louder than every speech they ever gave. It was heavier than every coin they ever minted. It was deadlier than every army they ever raised. The palace cracked. The empire shook. The leaders broke. And you just watched. Not one move. Not one word. Not one gesture. And still, crowns fell. Armies scattered. Legends dissolved. All because their leader signed a blank check, and you paid him back with silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is a storm restrained. It is thunder waiting in the clouds. Lightning coiled inside the sky. It does not roar, because it does not need to. Its weight is felt without a sound. The leaders learned this too late. Psychologists whispered it in their hidden journals. Words stab, poison seeps. But silence, carves deeper than both. It kills slowly, leaving no mark, no blade, no trace. They studied the collapse. They charted the unraveling. And still, none of them could measure the abyss your silence created. Because silence is not passive. It is active. It infects thought. It corrupts confidence. It drips doubt into every corner of the mind. Their leader had signed the blank check. He expected thunder. He expected fire. He expected you to arrive with noise, fury, chaos. But you gave him nothing. No reply. No roar. No claim. Just silence. And that silence became his executioner. You didn't need to cut him down. You didn't need to strike. You didn't even need to appear. His doubts did all the work for you. His silence, your silence became his death sentence. I didn't answer their offer. You grinned. I let their own doubts answer for me, and doubts are crueler than knives. Knives pierce once, doubts pierce endlessly, they replay, repeat, torment. One wordless night becomes 2, becomes 10, becomes eternal. That is the genius of silence. It is execution without blood. It is judgment without a gavel. It is the gallows built in the mind of the condemned. And so the palace grew quieter, not with peace, but with dread. Every silence answered them louder than thunder ever could. The generals stopped speaking strategy. The ministers stopped swearing loyalty. The ruler stopped making speeches. What was left to say? Every word was a betrayal. Every oath was a lie. Every promise cracked under the weight of the silence hanging over them. The ruler sat on his throne, but it no longer felt like a throne. It felt like a chair waiting in a courtroom, a witness seat, an accused man's dock, a condemned prisoner's last rest before the rope, and all because silence judged him guilty before he could even plead. Psychologists admitted it plainly. What destroys the psyche is not attack, but the anticipation of attack. Silence does not warn of when it strikes. It makes every second the moment before the blow. The ruler lived forever in that moment, the second before impact, the breath before collapse, the heartbeat before death. It never came, and yet it killed him all the same. Silence was the executioner, and it swung no blade. It only stood in the corner smiling, waiting, and the condemned ruler strangled on his own fear. Escalation followed naturally. Fear transformed into surrender, not because you broke them with force, but because you never touched them at all. They surrendered to shadows. They surrendered to echoes. They surrendered to silence. And in the end, that silence didn't just take their crowns. It took their names. It took their voices. It took their very will to resist. For silence does not just kill men. It erases them. The ink never dried. Not on that blank check. Not on the memory of it. It seeped. It stained. It crawled through bloodlines. Generations were born into silence. Generations raised not on lullabies, but on whispers. Every cradle rocked with fear instead of comfort. Every heir carried not wealth, not crowns, not pride, but shame. The streets remembered, and the streets whispered. Their leaders' ink bought silence that never ended. Children heard it in alleys. Merchants murmured it in markets. Priests muttered it under their breath. The name of the leader was not remembered. The silence he bought was funny, isn't it? The signature outlived the man. Your voice, your silence became the only inheritance. An heirloom carved not in gold, but in absence. No dynasty could rewrite it. No scribe could erase it. The paper burned, but the act lingered, because silence once signed doesn't disappear. It multiplies. The ruler's children grew up avoiding mirrors, avoiding speeches, avoiding the very act of claiming who they were. Their fathers signed with ink. They signed with erasure, family crests hidden, names shortened, forgotten, cut from stone, histories rewritten with blank pages. Where pride once stood, it was not protection, it was surrender, passed from father to son, mother to daughter, a tradition of dread. Silence became the anthem of entire bloodlines, a vow unspoken, but binding all the same. Children grew afraid of speaking too loudly, afraid that laughter would echo back as mockery, afraid that pride would be punished with silence heavier than death. Psychologists who studied them wrote it down as a curse. This is not trauma of the man, this is trauma of his shadow, and the shadow speaks no words. The shadow spoke silence, and silence taught obedience. Obedience taught erasure. Generations forgot their own stories, but remembered your silence in every bone, in every trembling hand, in every vow never spoken. And the strangest part, the silence became more powerful than the ink ever was. The check was gone. The man was gone, but the echo of his arrogance remained, a lesson etched into children not yet born. Do not challenge the silence. Do not awaken the shadow. Do not sign with pride, for silence demands a heavier price. Society itself bent around this dread. Banners were lowered, songs went unsung, legacies buried themselves before time could. A city without memory, a people without names, a future without voice. This is the inheritance, not crowns, not palaces, not coins, but the dread of your silence. A dread written in every heartbeat, a silence carried like blood. And so generations lived, not in the presence of your roar, but in the absence of your words. And absence, they learned, weighs heavier than presence ever could. The last elders gathered, faces wrinkled with shame, hands trembling, not from age, but from the weight of what they carried. They had carried silence like a coffin, and tonight they opened it. The truth spilled out, raw and undeniable. The silence was never emptiness. It was presence, a presence larger than kings, larger than bloodlines, larger than history itself. They confessed in whispers, afraid even of their own words. It was not nothing, they said. It was him. Silence had absorbed them. It seeped into their archives, rewrote their banners, bled through their maps. Empires didn't fall from swords, they fell from silence. And silence had a name, your name. Joker grin. They signed their names away. I signed nothing, and owned everything. That was the revelation. They thought wealth was ownership. They thought armies were protection. They thought titles made them eternal. But silence was the true inheritance. And you owned it all without lifting a pen. The cosmic shift could not be ignored. Silence was not absence of sound. It was the presence of dread. It was not a void. It was a mirror so vast it swallowed their reflection, and reshaped it into yours. Their laws bent under it. Their families broke under it. Their bloodlines dissolved into it. Generations tried to escape it, but the silence only grew louder. Every abandoned crest, every erased name, every child born without a title was proof that silence had won. The elders finally understood. This wasn't their silence. This wasn't the silence of shame. This was your silence, and it had colonized their history. It rewrote their past. It dictated their present. It suffocated their future. Their palaces stood, but they were mausoleums of soundless halls. Their thrones remained, but no one dared sit. Their libraries stayed full, but every word dissolved when spoken aloud. And so they realized, silence was not their prison. It was your empire. Your silence ruled them in ways armies never could. It judged them in ways gold never measured. It haunted them in ways death never touched. The elders bowed their heads not in prayer, but in surrender. They admitted it openly. We thought silence was defeat, but it was his victory. We thought silence was the end, but it was his beginning. In that confession, the last of their pride cracked, the last of their history bent, the last of their inheritance burned, and your silence, eternal, unbroken, unchallenged, stood taller than every crown they buried. Leaders vanish, kings are buried, empires crumble into dust, but silence outlives them all. The ink on their blank check has long faded. The palaces they built now echo without voices. The banners they raised hang in tatters, stirred only by a wind that carries no song. And still, your silence remains, not weakened, not forgotten, but louder than ever, because nothing spreads faster than what cannot be heard. Cities bow in wordless fear. Markets close early, not from war, not from famine, but from the chill of silence that haunts their streets at night. History itself bends around you. Scribes write carefully, avoiding your name, but leaving blank spaces, as if silence itself must be recorded. Generations grow up not speaking the story, but feeling it. A hush follows them wherever they go. A hush older than memory, stronger than law, and in that hush, you are everywhere. They once thought silence was emptiness. Now they know better. Silence is possession. It takes root in minds, in bloodlines, in cities and thrones. It survives the burning of books, the collapse of dynasties, the death of leaders, because silence cannot be killed. It only multiplies. Your grin lingers like an aftershock. They thought silence erased me, but silence spreads, forever, and it has. One king's signature became the inheritance of nations. One act of arrogance became the dread of centuries, and one silence, yours, rewrote the story of power itself. No general marches against it. No priest prays it away. No scholar explains it. They only live inside it, like insects caught in amber, frozen in a history they cannot escape. The world has learned its final lesson. It is not gold that rules. It is not armies. It is not crowns. It is silence. The silence you gifted them. The silence that swallowed them. The silence that echoes louder than every scream they ever raised against you. Now no dynasty dares to sign a name. No leader dares to promise power. Every hand that reaches for a pen trembles, haunted by the shadow of that blank check. And so silence lingers, not as absence, but as empire, not as void, but as eternal shadow. They tried to bury it. They tried to rewrite it, but silence is the one thing history cannot erase. And as long as men dare to dream of crowns, your silence will be waiting, smiling in the dark, haunting every dynasty that dares to sign its name.